All right. Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody to the April edition 2022 of the Atlanta Radio Club. Of course, we're still on Zoom. Quick note, good news. The Red Cross is opening back up. So we're going to attempt an in-person and Zoom meeting with our May 1st meeting, first Thursday, whatever the date is. I don't have it in front of me, but the first Thursday of the month, we're gonna attempt start our in-person meetings back in May. So do join us if you can't. Of course, we're gonna have Zoom. It's a great tool to add to the bag here of things we can do. So as we continue to bring some great programs, we'll be able to record them and offer them on the YouTube page and allow people that live outside the area to continue to be with us, even though they live out places like Arizona, Orlando, and so on and so forth. So, quick things: we've got the Georgia QSO party this weekend. If you've never operated in the QSO party, it's like field day or any of the other events that you might do, making contacts. So please do consider getting on there. The Atlanta Radio Club is going to have two opportunities. Saturday, we have an event going on up in um, the North Georgia Victoria Bryant State Park. And that'll be from 2 o'clock until dark. And then we'll also do one on Sunday here in town at Brook Run in Dunwoody. And that'll be for a couple hours from 2 o'clock until probably about 6. And then that will give some folks here that might be new and would like to try to get on a radio, that'll give them an opportunity to also not have to travel all the way to North Georgia. So join us at one or two of those, Saturday at Victoria Bryant and then Sunday at Brook Run in Dunwoody.
Rick, are you gonna work it?
Yeah, I'm gonna use my brand new hex beam.
Okay, good.
If you're
Sounds
working,
and go away at it. Yeah.
if you're working the
tell
Q,
people down here about it, and of course we got the Florida QSO party on the 30th of April. So got two of them in a row, almost in a row, 3 weeks apart.
they're fun. We some of us did the Tennessee QSO party last year in September, and we went up to Tennessee and did that, and that was a lot of fun. So if you are working it and you'd like to try to give some credit to the Atlanta Radio Club while you're doing it from your home station, when you submit the log, there's a pull down list of radio clubs. Just select Atlanta Radio Club, and we get some sort of credit for you doing it from home with your call sign and all that. So um, please do that. If you have any questions about how the QSO party, the rules and so forth, how to submit logs, go to the Georgia QSO party webpage, and all your questions to be able to be answered there. Quick note on the repeaters. Stephen couldn't be with us tonight, so he wanted me to let y'all know that they're working on updating their documentation of things that are on the bank tower. They're also attempting to work on some of the noise that we've been dealing with. Hadn't been as bad as it has in the past, but we are experiencing a little bit of noise from time to time. And then, of course, they're looking at increasing our coverage or making our coverage a little better than it's been. So, Jeff, I know you've been involved in this. Jeff Hochberg is part of the repeater committee. Do you have anything that you need or wanted to add about the repeaters?
No, just that Stephen, I requested from him to get the diagrams or for work on get moving on the documentation. So he sent me a draft earlier this week. I just have not had a chance to look at it yet, but I will. And gosh, there was something else I just thought of when it went in one ear and out the other. It wasn't all that important.
Okay.
Back to you.
All right, and let's see what else. Looks like Andy's getting some stuff shuffled through, but Hamfest, of course, is coming up June 4th, so please do put that on the calendar. And if you'd like to volunteer, probably in the next week here, there'll be a volunteer schedule that you can pull down on the website and select a slot and fill your name in. So we'll be doing a lot of stuff out there. It's a one-day Hamfest, as it's been the last couple of years. We are having discussions of some point of possibly taking it back to a 2-day. That'll kind of be probably in the next year or two, possibly. So some of our goals that we put in place. But we do need all the help we can get. We're going to be running a special event station since it's our 90th event. And then we'll have a lot of little build sessions going on out there in addition to our forums. Hopefully in the next couple weeks, you'll start to see some of the forums appear on the webpage. Wayne Robertson, K4WK, is working on that, and will be reporting back to us here soon as he's starting to work through our forum presenters. So we're trying to make it a great group of forums to address a lot of the things that people are interested in right now, whether it's POTA, stealth antennas like tonight, maybe Tom Crowley's radio astronomy program that he does. So and maybe some new ham stuff. So if you have some suggestions or something you might like to see at the Ham Fest as a forum, please do contact one of us at the club. You can just hit president@atlantaradioclub.org and send me an email and let me know what you might like to see as far as forums or other things. So your input is much appreciated so that we can make it the best event possible. Are we getting close, Andy, to hand it over?
We're within a minute.
Okay.
John, strange antenna. Oh, Andy's got a GT. Oh, he's got a GT up there. That's good.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. Our May event, we've been trying to do one event a month. Our May event is going to be the Strange Antenna Challenge. If you have never seen or heard of that before, it is a lot of fun. It's exactly what it is. You know, you bring, we'll have an event somewhere, and you bring an antenna that is probably as strange you could possibly think, and give it a whirl and see if you can make it work. So we've had things like stacked Coke cans. We've had crutches in the shape of a dipole. We've had what else was? Oh, someone I think tried to tune up a bicycle.
Yeah, step ladder. Oh,
Step ladder. So I think a light bulb was attempted at one point. So all kinds of things. It's if nothing else, it's fun to come out and see what people have come up with as far as a crazy antenna might be. So
yeah, it can't be made out of wire. It could be.
Yeah, it can't be made out of wire.
That's the big thing. And you know,
All right. There you go, John. So that you had asked for suggestions for future programs. So this is one that I've garnered a lot of
that was
recognition out here for.
That was one of the ones that one of the topics that Wayne and I talked about the other night. So because that has been a hot topic on emails around town here. People have been asking. So thanks for bringing that up. So yeah, strange antenna challenges. As far as our activities are concerned, just take a look at our calendar on the webpage, and as we get and Facebook also, as we get more details, especially for the strange antenna challenge over the next week or so, we'll start posting those things on our webpage and Facebook. So please do join us for that. It's a lot of fun. I think I'll start to kind of hand it over to our very handsome activities chairman.
Still handsome. Yeah.
Rob Asatin, KI4UTY. He is doing what Andy used to do for us back in the mid-90s. Rob is our activities chairman. So
Okay.
So he's kind of doing what
trying to do it as well as I'm sure Andy did.
So I'll turn it over to you, Rob.
Well, I am going to punt and turn it over as requested to a fellow who was big on our. He was a regular participant in our Sunday night nets. When I was net op, I was looking for Rick K4ABB from Smyrna, right? It's from
Marietta.
Oh, Marietta. I was close. Marietta.
Plus next door.
So yeah, Rick and Andy are old friends here, so I'm going to let Rick go ahead and introduce his friend. So take it, Rick.
Okay, Andy's going to do Andy Keels is a professional engineer who's been out in Arizona for the last few years. He and I used to work on the repeaters and knew one another pretty well back in the 90s. First time I've seen you in a while.
Long time.
Zoom. But anyway, he's gonna present a subject which is near and dear to my heart. That has to do with stealth antennas. Fortunately, I no longer live in an apartment complex. I have my own house here. which is bought and paid for. So I don't have to worry about it. And I have got no homeowner association. That's probably the leading thing about it that I like, in addition to some other things. But I managed to get my new hex beam up and all that. But enough about me. Andy is going to do this presentation here, and he knows what he's doing. So he's been out doing electrical wiring and stuff out in Arizona. I don't know exactly what all he's been doing. I'll let him talk about that. But anyway, here's Andy.
All right. Hey, thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. It's quite a treat to get introduced by you, actually. I'm glad to see you and I both still have our old call sign or our same call sign. So I actually twisted Rick's arm it was actually on a weeknight. I don't know if it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday night when Hurricane Opal roared through the Atlanta area, and the repeater controller, which was controlled by an IBM PC. For those of you that need to know, Rick was a master pro working on PCs, and I was a power engineering major, mainly because I hated working on computers. So I got twisted Rick's arm into to joining me because nobody else could meet me down at the bank tower on a weeknight at, like, I don't know, I think it was like 8 or 9 o'clock at night in the middle of a hurricane, and or tropical storm, I think was technically what it was classified at the time. We got security to take us up to the top of the Bank of America tower, and as we were walking through the executive boardroom, the security guard showed us the chandelier that was swinging back and forth like this, and that, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was Rick that pointed out that the chandelier was actually staying still. It was the building that was moving.
Yeah, because you were up on what, the 55th floor? Yeah.
56 or 57, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, we got to the top of the stairwell, which is another 2 flights above the top floor, and I drew the short straw to open the door. And when I did, the air pressure, up 1,000 feet over Peachtree Street was a whole lot less than it was inside the building. And that door about broke my arm when it opened outward and yanked me out. And I went flying off my feet out onto the roof, still holding onto the door handle.
Like walking into a wind tunnel.
Oh, it really was. So yeah, so we both we had to actually get down on our hands and knees and hold on to the roof tiles to crawl over to the room where the repeater sits to open the door there. And as I recall, I think the security guard chose to stay in the stairwell and handed me his keys to go over and open the door and then bring them back to him. So yeah, the rain was blowing. It wasn't even going sideways, if I remember right. The rain was actually going up on the roof, so we weren't getting pelted. It was what would I say? It was an adventure, to say the least.
Yeah.
Okay, so stealth antennas. So a little background on me on stealth antennas. I actually got my very first experience hiding antennas working as repeater manager for the Atlanta Radio Club, because one of the provisions for having our repeaters up there on top of the Bank of America tower is that they were not allowed to be seen externally to the building. So we had to make them blend in. So I got a little experience doing that. And then when I moved out here to Arizona, I got a whole lot more experience because, well, we don't have trees out here per se to, not trees like, back in foreland to hide antennas in and amongst. So you have to be a bit more creative. Anyway, so there was that. We also had, I started working with the repeaters with the Superstition Amateur Radio Club. And I just got, to be quite honest with you, tired of listening to people with really scratchy, weak, pitiful signals who claimed that they had to use a handheld inside their house to get into the repeater because they couldn't put antennas up outside. So that was when I decided, all right, I've had enough of this. I'm a professional engineer. I'm a professional speaker. I should be able to come up with a solution here to show folks how to do this. So here we go. So I am a professional engineer. My profession is electrical power. I actually moved out here to work for the local electric utility. And then after working for them for 14 years, I found out I could do just as well on my own. So I've now got my own engineering practice.
Question from one of our
Yes.
participants. Are you a double E?
Yes.
Okay. That's the
Yes.
answer.
Yeah. Graduated from Southern Polytechnic State University, just next door to the Big Chicken there in Marietta. So I am not an antenna expert. In fact, one of the courses that decided to make that I used to make my decision to be a power engineer was the antenna theory course at Southern Tech. So a lot of voodoo math there. Anyway, the story here shows that even ham operators, when I tried to find pictures for my presentation of ugly antennas, I could not find any ugly antenna installations out on the internet. That's not to say that there weren't any, but even ham operators, when they want to go take pictures of an antenna installation, they don't take pictures of the ugly ones and post them on their QRZ page. They take pictures of the really pretty ones. So I did manage to find these. Looks like one of them's a quasi television slash 2-meter antenna installation that I did find. And then the one on the top right there, for a short period of time, I had a next door neighbor out here who called himself a ham radio operator. And the neighbors used to all complain about his towers and his antennas because they were always leaning to one side, and he was getting into everybody's electronic equipment. And so I managed to intervene, or what do you call it, mediate several neighbor disputes. You can see, by the way, that's his feed line right there. It was apparently too much trouble to run it down the tower and then up the, yeah, so he just stretched it all the way across the yard, across the rooftop there, and ran it in the dining room window on the front side of the house. Yeah, you know, the one good thing about having the coax, the 2 runs of coax, or actually I think it was 1 run of coax and a rotor cable that was stretched across like that. Whenever the wind would blow the tower to the south, he actually had at least 1 guy wire on there to hold it up. So all right, so let's see. So stealth antennas are all around us, and the neat thing about it is that if you look really hard, as a ham operator, you're more likely to find them. I've run into people, all kinds of non-licensed civilians that have asked me from time to time when they hear I'm an engineer about, you know, what's that funny looking tree over there? Why would anybody plant a tree like that? And I have to tell them, that's not a tree, that's a cell tower. They went, what? I'm like, yeah, it's actually a cell tower. But these are some that I actually took pictures of these out here in the Phoenix metro area. Why in the world somebody would put a fake pine spruce fir tree in Phoenix for a cell tower, I have the foggiest idea. Those belong up in Flagstaff, where they actually have trees that look like that. Those actually really stick out because you can spot them a mile away, you know, because, well, there aren't any trees like that around here. The one on the bottom right is actually you can actually buy those in a catalog, believe it or not. Is it Microflect and Cellwave actually sell those in their catalog as a palm tree looking cell tower. And those are ubiquitous around the Phoenix Valley area, all over the place. The one in the bottom left here, there's a rather, how would I put it, affluent community called Fountain Hills, north of Mesa. And I forget whether it was Verizon or T-Mobile was having to add some additional 4G antennas, and in order to get their cells smaller, and they needed to they couldn't find a church steeple or something else to put their antennas in, and so this was one they came up with, and I actually happened to get a picture of it. There's 2 identical 4G cell towers or cell sites in there. Pretty ingenious. So there's ways of doing it, and wanted to also point out here that as hams, it is incumbent upon us to promote goodwill through the practice of our hobby and not disdain. That's actually outlined in some of the guidelines from the American Radio Relay League, is as hams to be, we're supposed to be good ambassadors of our hobby and ambassadors of our clubs. And one of the ways we do that is to promote goodwill with our neighbors who are not maybe necessarily fans of ugly looking antennas. And the last thing we want to do is to, brood disdain amongst non-hams because of our ugly antenna installations. The prettier we can make them, the better. It's unfortunate that there have been enough hams who didn't have the same level of courtesy prior to us that have caused far too many homeowners associations to take action. So yeah, the intent there is to try to be good promoters of our hobby. Now, how do we do? How do we, what's the right word for it? How do we use good construction practices and not promote disdain? Well, this is actually a picture of my antenna installation. Now, it's not stealthy at all, but the biggest, and this was actually what I learned when I was working for the Atlanta Radio Club as repeater manager up at the bank tower, was that to practice good workmanship. Good workmanship can be admired by just about anybody, and try to keep things as neat as possible. People like straight edges, clean lines, matching colors. So even if you're not in an HOA, like I'm not in a homeowners association that prohibits antennas here, I still try to do my very best to make sure that my antenna installations are mechanically sound. They're not, not likely to fall over. If they're not rusty, they're not leaning to one side. Try to keep them clean and straight, tie the feed lines back against the masts. Painting things to match the background always helps. In my case, I've painted all of my masts and clamps and brackets below the chimney line there the same color as the house, and everything above that I've painted it a sky gray, so that from a distance you can still see it, but it doesn't jump out at you. Again, just one way to practice good workmanship, even if you don't necessarily have to make it stealthy. Try to make it look clean and professional. Now, some of the ways that they do that, and I've learned this from working for the power company for a long time, and that is the best way to camouflage an antenna, or for that matter, a power line against the sky, is to paint it light gray. I actually have seen, I think it was Archer from Radio Shack back years ago used to sell their fiberglass crossbow antenna was a Carolina blue. And man, you could spot that thing a long ways away. The sky ain't blue, folks. It's actually light gray. Your eyes play tricks on you with the water vapor and the blue light to make you think it's blue. So the power companies know about this, and so they've found a long time now that they use either steel or galvanized steel or aluminum conductors and towers. And once they've been up there for a little bit, the oxidation turns them a very light gray, and they actually blend in fairly well as something that large could. So one of the things I've done is I found this particular color. I experimented with some Rust-Oleum colors, and Rust-Oleum paint just does not work well for painting antennas. It's actually got enough solids in it that adversely affect the operation of the antenna. So you want to get a cheaper paint. I found Ace and Krylon actually work really well, and the lighter gray the better. Another reason for painting antennas is that fiberglass or plastic antenna parts are subject to damage from ultraviolet radiation. Out here in Arizona, where the UV index is 5 times the national average, the sunlight destroys pretty much anything within a year or two of you putting it outside. So the advantage to painting your antennas is that the pigments, the pigmentation in the paints actually serves to block the UV light from penetrating through it and protects the antenna. Years ago, I used to have I think it was an Arrow antenna. It was a 2-meter quad that I bought at one of the Atlanta Ham Fests, and it stayed up on my roof for a number of years. And when I went to take it down to move to Arizona, I had to get a pair of welding gloves to touch the thing because the fiberglass had just all come apart. So even if you're not in Arizona, it's still a good idea to put some paint on your antennas. Now, if it's an aluminum antenna like a Cushcraft, that's not necessary. But if it's a fiberglass or plastic antenna, good idea to paint it. Try to get it to blend in as best you can. By the way, the worst thing you could possibly paint an antenna is flat black. Works great for your gas grill. Not so good if you want to put it up in the sky. Keep in mind, nobody's going to be out looking for your antenna at night. They're going to look for it in the daytime when a flat black's going to show up worse than anything else. Okay, so that's how you take care of antennas that aren't necessarily stealthy. Let's talk a little bit about antennas that are stealthy. And so stealthy antennas can be considered stealthy in 2 different ways. They can be hidden in plain sight, or they can be hidden out of sight. So let's cover each one of these by itself and see what that looks like. So these are some antennas that are camouflaged right in plain sight. There's no hiding it. You know it's there. What you don't know is what it is. The antenna over on the well, let's start with the one on the far right. The flagpole antenna. Oh, that's a classic. If you're interested in putting up a flagpole antenna, I believe it is, it's not Texas, maybe it is Texas Towers, or no, it's DX Engineering. I'm sorry. DX Engineering actually sells a kit to build exactly what you see here in this picture. I don't know, back in the foreland, I think it's really rare that you would find a homeowners association that would prohibit a flagpole, and so that's probably a pretty good option. Believe it or not, out here in Arizona, there have actually been several court challenges, legal challenges, court battles between homeowners associations and ham operators putting up flagpoles in their front yard to fly the American flag. So some of that, I have no doubt that some of that is the craziness that's drifted over from California and taken root here in Arizona. But suffice to say, it's all in the legal wording as to how that, some of those went one way and some of those went the other, that was my understanding. Okay, the one in the middle here, the Dish Network TV antenna. This was actually an article that was featured in QST a number of years ago, and I've got the article here further down in the presentation. This is what you're looking at there is a 2-meter FM antenna. It's called a slotted antenna. Slotted antennas were actually designed for use on military aircraft, where they couldn't, trail a wire behind the plane. They couldn't put an antenna aerial radial down off the plane, typically because the planes were going to be doing loop-de-loops and turns and might not always be facing the ground. And I forget where the engineers were that came up with the slotted antenna design, but it's actually really cool when you read more into it. Again, I'm not an antenna expert. I'm just a hobbyist here, and this was one that I found that actually seems to work pretty doggone well. I've got typically when I give this presentation to a club in person out here in Arizona, I have one of these that I followed the directions in the QST article and built it, and it really works really well. So We'll talk about that a little bit later. Over here on the left is a picture of my roof here. And what you're looking at there is a drain waste vent pipe for my master bathroom. And then in the background is the drain waste vent pipe for the kitchen. And sitting on top of that drain waste vent pipe is a, what do they call it? A ventina. And I used ventinnas all through college when I lived actually just right across the freeway from Rick Black. Rick, you were off of Windy Hill, wasn't it? Yep. Thumbs up or down? Yeah. So he was right off of Windy Hill on the east side of I-75. I was right off of Windy Hill on the west side of 75. And so I actually put 3 of these up on my apartment roof one night when the property manager wasn't there, painted them to match the roof tiles, and lived there for 3 years and nobody ever noticed. And so had antennas on my apartment building. So that works really well. We'll talk a little bit more about the ventina later. Oh, I guess we'll talk about it now. So the Ventina company, this is from their webpage. If you're interested in ordering antennas, they're still in business. Interesting story here. You used to be able to go to HRO and buy a Ventina right off the shelf. However, HRO did such a good job of marketing and selling the Ventinas that were supplied to them that John and Mark, who owned the company, couldn't keep up with the orders. And they're both retired. I think one of them from like AT&T Labs and the other one from, I forget what the other RF company was. And I remember talking to John on the phone, and he said that he had that John and Mark and both their wives and one of their neighbors and their kids were out in the shop. They were having to build these things so fast they couldn't keep up with the orders. So they finally terminated their agreement with HRO because they just couldn't supply them fast enough. So all that to say, if you need a vent or want to try a Ventina, you can go to the webpage, www.ventina.com, and order one from them.
Not anymore.
Nope.
Nope, they closed back in July last year.
In July of, oh, that's too bad.
Yep.
That's too bad. Okay, well, that's news. Thank you. Appreciate that. Interesting story. John WB4YJY told me that they used to build these things for the FBI and the CIA to use. He couldn't tell me what frequencies or what, but he did say that they actually they were doing stakeouts and they would put these up on buildings and use them for antennas. So he's got quite a bit of experience with that. All right, too bad. Well, for those of you that want to build one, it's a half wave. It's a half wave vertical that's spirally wrapped around the inside of that one. I took mine apart and figured out how to build them, but they're a little tricky to tune, but they're still pretty cool. Anyway, we'll keep moving on. So this was my Ventina installation. I actually chose to have my coax drop down through the middle of it rather than come out the side. And so I drilled a hole in the roof there, put in a flashing, just like ordinary there, and stacked the pipe right up on top, and the coax comes down through the middle and ties to my feed line there and runs down to the radio. So that's actually the 2-meter monoband Ventina that I've got for the 2-meter radio in my workshop outside. Again, this is a dual band, 2-meter 70 centimeter Ventina. I guess I'll keep moving on since they closed. Well, I have to go back and fix the presentation, I guess.
Still a great idea.
It was a great idea. Okay, so we'll spend a little more time on this one. If you can't buy a Ventina, this is actually probably the next stealthiest option for you. It's a quarter wave ground plane. built to look like built sort of like a Ventina. It would work just like one. I guess the Ventina is a half wave vertical, so it doesn't need a ground plane. This is a quarter wave. Actually, the one in the middle there is up on my roof right now. And I've got another one in my attic. So when we get our violent lightning storms that roll through here in the middle of the summertime, I'm still on the air because I've got a quarter wave like this in my attic. But what you see here on both on the left and on the right are these quarter wave ground planes that I have built and put on rooftops of club members that live in the Dobson Ranch subdivision. That's probably got some of the most antenna restrictive covenants around. Most of the HOAs typically say if they can see it from the sidewalk in front of your house, it's not allowed. Dobson Ranch subdivision, if your next door neighbor can see it from their backyard, it's not allowed. So these actually have worked out pretty well over there. Because the neighbors typically don't even know what it is. So anyway, and they get out really, really well. So good, easy to build one. The upper right picture, I cut, copied, and pasted, or you want to call it R&D, ripped off and duplicated from the ARRL handbook. So that's right there in the ARRL handbook, and that's the formula exactly, all the dimensions and everything that I used for these PVC pipe antennas. I typically build them in a 2-inch PVC. I have done them an 1.5 inch. 2-inch gives you a little bit more room for your fingers to work around on the inside there. The copper J-pole, as I recall back when I was ham in Atlanta, there were several people that were using copper J-poles. Copper pipe's a bit more expensive now than it used to be. And I've heard people trying to build these out of aluminum tubing, which works just as well. It's just a little bit harder to solder aluminum tubing. You kind of need somebody with a TIG welder to tack it to. But the cool thing about the copper pipe is, again, you don't need the ground plane radials. It works off of a 1/2 inch, or I'm sorry, half wave antenna with matching stub there. And there's several pictures of half wave J-poles in these pictures here. I'll give you a hint. So one of them is sitting in a flower pot right here, and it has been the ham went over to Joann's or Michael's and bought a whole bunch of plastic silk flower vines, etc., decorated it up, and it looks like a house plant sitting out there on the balcony. The second one, it's really, I don't even know if you can see it, but it's actually attached to the outside face of that column. Can you guys see my mouse moving on the screen?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sure
good.
can. But I don't see the antenna.
Right. Well, so it's attached to that outside face right there. And it's not a copper pipe J-pole. It's a J-pole that's made out of a TV twin lead. So you can make these J-poles out of TV twin lead. You can make them out of 450 ohm ladder line, and then paint it with some house paint to match the house, and just attach it to the wall right there. So I guess may have been actually, that antenna may have actually been too long to have tacked it up there, but that's where it's tacked up right there. So J-poles are great. Again, you can disguise them all kinds of ways and put them up. Good idea there. Oh, here's the TV twin lead antenna. So the antenna I was just telling you about that was painted up on that townhouse building. The twin lead J-pole antenna, here again, this is built with 450 ohm ladder line, which I found works better than the TV twin lead, although the 300 ohm TV twin lead is easier to take mobile with you and wad it up, stick it in your pocket, and take it out on a maybe a public service venture. So I recall, I think there were a couple of hams back when I was working the Peachtree Road Race that would actually use the 300 ohm TV twin lead to make J-pole out of, and they'd throw a little string or something up over a tree branch out in Piedmont Park, or maybe up over a signpost or something on Peachtree Street somewhere, so that their antenna would be up over the top of their head, and then they'd sit down in their lawn chair right there on the sidewalk to do their Peachtree Road Race, check-in stuff. By having a bigger antenna up over your head like that, they could run with half a watt all day long and still have plenty of battery power instead of having to run the full 5 watts on the rubber duck and get in. So good way of something to think about there. All right. Here we go. This is the article I was referring to. This was March of 2016 in QST.
NBC.
So, yep, March of 2016 QST. And it's a slotted antenna. Now, the interesting thing about a slotted antenna is that the radiation pattern ends up being perpendicular to the slot. So if the slot is horizontal, that would be a vertically polarized antenna, or it would have a vertically polarized radiation coming off of it. If the slot were vertical, it would act like a horizontal radiation pattern. A couple of things that are really important to do when you work on this project here. First thing is make sure that these connections right here on the back of the panel, you want to use brass screws and some contact grease, and maybe file or grind away some of the paint, enamel paint that's on that dish, so you can get a good metal to metal bond there. You need a choke on there because the way the antenna works, you'll end up with RF on the shield of your feed line. So you need basically as a current ballon, if you will, or RF choke. And you can build one really easy. It tells you in the directions here how many turns and what diameter, and put the zip ties on there. And then the other thing I found that was really important is that with these dishes, what gives that antenna, I mean, that antenna is actually really rigid. If you've ever played around with one, they're pretty doggone rigid. They don't blow around in the wind. And that rigidity is gained by the bow in the antenna, or the bow in the dish, as well as that rim that runs around the back. But as soon as you start trying to cut a slot in it, it loses all its rigidity and it becomes, no more rigid than a piece of copier paper. So it doesn't talk about it in the article here. What I found out the hard way, let's see, okay. What I found out the hard way is that once you start grinding I used an angle 4.5 inch angle grinder to cut my slots in the with a cutoff wheel to cut the slot in my dish. But what I found out later helps out is if you use some I think I got some phenolic blocks, or when I built another one, I used some pieces of clear Lexan and some RTV, and put the pieces of clear Lexan and the RTV across the slot on the back of the dish to try to reestablish its rigidity, and then painted them gray to match the antenna before I put it up in the air. Actually, that worked pretty darn good. You could never tell. So that's a good one right there. Fun one to try out too, because the supplies for this one are pretty cheap, especially if you can find somebody in your neighborhood that's abandoned one of these on the house. You can ask them, hey, I'll take it down if you'll give it to me. Okay. The flagpole antenna using the Hustler 4BTV. Again, DX Engineering actually sells the kit to do this. I guess they figured that there was enough interest out there that they'd assemble all the parts and make the kit to do it. it looks pretty neat. It's actually a lot more trouble to put up than you would think. The Hustler 4B TV needs a very good, well-established counterpoise or ground plane. And I don't know if I showed it in the pictures here, but in order to make this thing work, you have to, here again, you have to install a really good counterpoise or ground plane. And so that's going to involve trenching the sod or whatever your earth covering is to install ground radials. And I believe Dick Bentley, K2UFT, actually had something similar to this installed in his backyard back when he was Elmering me. He had I believe it was a butternut vertical, very similar to the Hustler 4B TV here. And he was using a phone wire somewhere. He had gotten a telephone cable that had, I don't know, 60 or 70 pair in it. And he stripped the outer jacket off and separated all of the all the 22 or 24 gauge solid phone wires, and soldered them all together at one end and on the and bolted that to his to the bottom of his butternut vertical, and then the rest of the phone wires he just he had to rake all the pine straw and leaves up out of the backyard and just laid them all out across the ground and then put all the pine straw and leaves back down. So if you want to put it in the front yard with sod, you're going to have to put those wires under the sod somehow or lay them in. So that's probably the most difficult part. But they do work. I've actually got a buddy out here in Chandler, Arizona, who's got a Hustler 5B TV that he put up in his backyard. He didn't disguise his as a flagpole, and because it's in the backyard, he didn't have to bury the ground radials. Instead, he painted his green and went out and bought a bunch of like cactus flowers and decorated his to look like a cactus bush in his backyard. So the neighbors can't see over the wall to see what's, below the 6 foot level. All they can see are the flowers and stuff at the top. And so far, nobody's complained about it. He's on the air all the time. So that's a good idea, one right there. What's that?
Loop Skywire.
Yes, the Loop Skywire. So, and Rick and John actually might remember this too. We had Dave. I remember we used to call him W. Was his call sign was like W.
W0MHS.
That's it. Thank you. Yes, W0MHS.
He's got a new call now. I don't remember what it is.
Does he?
K7 call.
Oh, so W0MHS actually came to the Atlanta Radio Club and gave a presentation on antenna theory and on the Loop Skywire that he, I don't know if he has so much invented it as he reinvented it and wrote it all up for the ARRL. And it's in the handbook. But back when the Atlanta Radio Club used to have its meetings at the Kittredge Magnet School in the school cafeteria, there was when Dave W0MHS came and spoke to us about that. I thought it was a fantastic idea. I wanted to put one up at my parents' house in Dunwoody, but they didn't have any trees in the front yard, and it just didn't work out so well. But when I moved from Dunwoody to Overland Park, Kansas, I was very careful to make sure to pick out a house that had some very tall cottonwood trees in the front yard and some pretty big white oak trees in the backyard. And I put up an 80-meter Loop Skywire antenna, and I used it for field day in, when was that? That was 2005. I believe it was 2005 and 2006. And I was operating my Yaesu FT847 on the HF bands with 100 watts and an auto tuner with that 80-meter Loop Skywire up about 40 feet. Oh my word. The pileups that I created were unbelievable. 100 watts on the rig. Granted, I was located dead center in the country there, right outside of Kansas City. But this antenna performed better than any antenna I've ever seen in my life. It was awesome. I can't believe the pilots that I got. And I was working it on 20, 40, and 80. So it was a star performer for sure. Now, out here in Arizona, we don't have the trees to do this, and the cactus, even the really tall saguaros, don't grow tall enough to put up something like this. So I decided to go with a slight variant of this. And when everybody was putting up their Christmas tree lights, or I'm sorry, when everybody was decorating their house for Christmas right after Thanksgiving, I got a spool of switchboard wire, 14 gauge switchboard wire from work they were getting rid of, and put the loop around the house on the fascia board. Now, this is a little easier to do out here in Mesa because none of the houses have gutters. That's another story for another day, but as to why. But since we don't have gutters on the house out here, I don't have to worry about radiating my gutters or having using my gutters as parasitic elements. So I just tacked it to the fascia board, and I made 2 full laps around the house, terminated it on a 1-to-1 balun right here up under the eave, and it feeds in with some I believe that's RG58. I think, yeah, that's RG58 that it feeds in there with. And normally I'd feed it with RG8, but I think my transmitter's like right down here. So that entire run of feed line's about 20 feet. Yeah. And that is the best listening antenna that I have in my current arsenal after dark. Now, during the daytime, I've got an inverted V that actually listens much better, but after dark, that antenna actually does a really, really good job picking up the distant stations that I can't hear on my vertical or my inverted V. I don't transmit on it. It's got super sky high SWR for transmit, but it does a killer job receiving. So I'll end up doing a split antenna setup when I'm operating at night on 40, using this to receive on, and then I'll transmit on either my inverted V or my Cushcraft R8. Good idea though. Oh, here we go. Yep, more of the story. So this is my my horizontal loop or quasi horizontal loop. Pictures of it. I tell folks in the ham club out here that if you're going to put it up, the best time to put it up is either right before or right after Thanksgiving, when nobody's going to question why you're up on your extension ladder on the side of the house nailing stuff up. With, when you've got a big old long spool of wire behind you, especially if you're in a deed restricted or antenna restricted homeowners, association. They'll allow you to put Christmas lights up during Christmas season. So just get out there with everybody else and put it up during that time of the year, and nobody will question you. By the way, once I was done putting it up, I got out my paintbrush and my house paint, and I went back and painted over the top of it the same color as my fascia board. And then I've got a brown roof, so I slid some cardboard up underneath it and used some brown Krylon that matched my shingles to paint it right across, to paint the wire without painting the shingles. You can see my Cushcraft R8 back there in the background, sort of put that in perspective. So it's a pretty sneaky antenna, and it's fun to bring other hams from the club over and go, hey, I want you to look up there on my roof and, how many antennas do you count? Of course, they spot that one as one, and they spot the ones on the chimney. I'm like, all right, keep going. Keep going. I rarely ever get them spot this one. And those are trained hams looking for it. Okay, so we've talked about antennas that are hiding in sight. Well, now let's talk about hiding antennas out of sight. If you're in probably one of the newer homes in the Atlanta area that might actually have an HOA, you've probably got a roof pitch that's much steeper than the older homes in the Atlanta area, and may have enough room to stand up in your attic to be able to put a 2 meter or 70 centimeter beam in the attic. I thought this was a pretty clever operation. The good news is if you want to operate AMSAT, all of the really high slow Oscars are no longer in service. The newer amateur satellites are LEOs. They're CubeSats and they're LEOs. They fly overhead really fast, but they're a whole lot lower altitude. Some of them is, as low as 100 miles up. I think that's right. Or maybe they're 50 to 60 miles up. Either way, you can easily operate them with a 3-element 2-meter beam, which you should be able to put inside your attic. And the trick is being able to get the swing on them. So something neat to hide there. Okay, so some popular attic antennas. There's some pictures of some Slinky antennas here. I actually started using a Slinky antenna. I heard about it from it was a fellow that used to be a club member there, WB4GCF. Steve Flam used to be a club member from the AR with the Atlanta Radio Club. Steve Flam, WB4GCF. Rick, he used to live in Smyrna.
Yeah,
Long time ago.
I'm trying to remember. But
He lived about 3 or 4 blocks from Tad, WA4CUG, if I remember right. Yeah. Anyway, Steve Flam lived right off of Powers Ferry in an apartment complex, and so he taught me about the Slinky antenna. And so when I was, after I graduated college and was working for GE, I actually lived in Guam for a whole year. And I was in an apartment building overlooking Tumon Bay, which was a resort area. And they wouldn't let me put antennas up, but I wanted to still be able to operate do a lot of shortwave listening at night. So that's what you see in the upper right corner there. That's my balcony for my apartment that I lived in for a year in Guam, and that's my Slinky shortwave listening antenna there. I could pack it in my suitcase and took it over there and hooked it up. Fortunately, there was a Radio Shack in Tamuning. Yeah, was it Tamuning? No, Hagana. There we go. There was a Radio Shack in the little town of Hagana that I could go to get connectors and stuff. But so that actually worked really well. And I used to listen to all kinds of cool shortwave stuff at night out there in the middle of the Pacific with that antenna at night. The antenna on the left here, this is one that I actually got a picture of off of the internet. This guy here's got an electronic tuner attached right there to the bottom of his to be able to remotely tune it. And this one over here on the right is actually in my attic here in Arizona. And I use it for picking up AM broadcast stations at night. I've actually picked up WSB AM 750 on it one night. It was in, I don't want to say early to mid-January when it was really cold and very low humidity. So I don't know, I guess Skip ended up getting out just right, but I was able to pick up WSB AM 750 on that sucker, which was kind of neat. Unfortunately, I can't pick up WSB on that antenna during the summertime, so I have to listen to the Braves games via the internet. One thing you have to be careful of with these Slinky antennas is transmitting. You got to go low power with these things because just the way they're designed, they run pretty high SWR and will get you into all kinds of stuff in the house or in the apartment complex. So not an antenna you can run with a linear for sure. Couple others here. The Diamond X30 is a really popular antenna out here in Arizona with hams to put in attics. The guy that runs the ham radio outlet out here is his manager's name is Rick, and he says that the Diamond X30 and the Comet equivalent are probably the two fastest selling or most sold antennas that he has coming out of his store. He sells more of those than anything else. You put them in your attic, and you don't even have to spray paint it because the sun doesn't see it. The X50 is another good one if you've got a little bit higher pitched attic there. Okay, so when I was getting ready for this presentation, I asked some of the club members from the Superstition Amateur Radio Club here to if they had some stealthy antennas that they could send me pictures of, to send me pictures of some of the ones that they've built. And so that's where some of these pictures came from. Fold over antennas work really great out here because pretty much, I would say with rare exception, all the backyards out here have walls around them to keep out wildlife as well as neighbors. And so we don't have chain link fences like y'all do back in Foreland. All the backyards are walled, and the walls are typically 5 to 6 feet tall. Some of them are a little bit taller than that. So having an antenna that folds over works really well. You just have to make sure that it works on 40 and 80 because it's really hard to work anything what do you call it, lower than or above, anything above 30 meters after dark hasn't been real active lately. So the antennas that you see here have apparently these guys have had pretty good luck with them. So something else to look at. This is an antenna that actually, these are my palm trees. So this is my antenna that I use. It's an 80/40 meter inverted V. I bought it from, I think it's an MFJ. I got it from Rick, the manager here over at HRO. And the question is it's up in the palm tree there. So look in the picture there on the left, the upper left corner, and see if you can find the wire antenna. Go ahead, I'll let you adjust your glasses. It's up there, I promise you.
I see the ones on the roof, but I don't see the actual wire antenna.
Yeah, no, isn't that great? And I took that picture from my next door neighbor's backyard. So
that's the way my infit half wave is. You can't see it either.
Yeah. So here again, I bought the antenna in a kit, whatever, over at HRO. All I had to do was to break out my my light gray Ace spray paint and spray paint the loading coils in the middle and the insulators on the end with that light gray paint.
Question for you: how did you shimmy up that palm tree to get that up there?
Well, I'll show you. So you can see my little mouse here, right?
Yeah.
See all those little holes in the palm tree bark right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, those holes are from tree climber hooks.
Okay.
Pole climbing gaffs. You strap them on the side of your boot and stride your legs and get your climbing belt, and you just walk right up the tree.
Oh yeah, just like a squirrel.
Yeah, sort of, kind of. Yes, only I don't do it. So palm tree, y'all don't have palm trees back in Georgia. I had to learn about palm trees when I moved
here
here.
in Florida, that's for sure.
Yep. Well, so palm trees, they start blooming in the springtime, and like right about now, in fact. Yeah. And so usually every year, along about mid-May, I have to hire my tree pruning landscaper, the guy that does some landscape work for me. He's also a tree pruner, and he's got a pole climb. He's got the tree climber hooks that he puts on his boots, and the the strap, and he walks right up that palm tree, gets all the way up there to the very tippy top, and then pulls his chainsaw up, and then proceeds to hang off the side of that tree with his chainsaw, and he cuts all the dead fronds. Now you can see my tree right here still has some of the brown fronds, so he cuts all the dead fronds out, and he also cuts out some of the flower pods, that makes such a mess and trims up the bark. And so when he was up there, I handed him a pulley that I'd already attached to a big old long eye bolt, and asked him, I said, would you put this right up there at the tippy top of that tree? So he augured that thing right into the bark at the top of the tree. And I've got a run of, I used to call it parachute cord that's camo colored.
Mhm.
I bought camo colored parachute cord and run that through the pulley. And I've got what do you call it? A D-ring, I guess, on there. So I attached the D-ring to the ballon, and then you can see my halyard footman's loop right there at the base of the tree in the lower left corner. And so the halyard runs down the tree right parallel to the coax, and I lash it around lash the halyard around the footman's loop there, and I can hoist that. I can hoist the ballon up into the tree, and the ends are attached to weights that are run through some eye bolts on the outer edges of my fence that goes around my wall. So the weights on the end of the strings that attach keep it under tension so that it's nice and straight all the time. So even when that tree blows in the wind back and forth, and it moves pretty good during a windstorm out here, you can see the weights. If I look out the window, I can see the weights on the end of my my inverted V going up and down as the tree swings side to side. Actually works pretty good. So, but yeah, that 40 and 80 inverted V right there works awesome.
I'm sure.
And so
What is that,
really
about
good.
30 feet, 30, 40 feet?
It is exactly 36 feet
Oh, okay.
from the ground to the eye bolt is 36 feet. Yep. So it works great for a 40 / shortened 80 inverted V. Works really good. So I regularly talk to hams in Hawaii from Mesa, Arizona on that antenna.
Do you ever get fronds caught in the wire?
No, haven't done that yet so far.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot here in Florida. The
You get-
frond will fall off the palm tree. That's why I don't use the palm trees for antennas, because
Oh, my word.
the fronds will fall off and get hung up on the wire, and they're
Oh, my-
hard to get down. Yeah.
Oh my word. Well, the good news is, I guess if I ever did get a bird or a frog hung up on the wire, it's on a pulley. So all I got to do is go over there and
Just let
unlash
it down. Yeah,
and
that's a nice way to do
it just lowers right on down. So yeah, I can run it. And the neat thing about that is I've got them all on quick clips. So for like field day weekend, I've got a monoband 20 meter and a what do you call it? And another one that I built up, the loading coil that does 12 and 12, 15, and 17
Yeah.
with coils in it. That so I can go out there and switch bands pretty quickly by just, it's like lowering a flag down off a tree. And I can clip the 20 meter monoband on it and run it up, reattach it to the coax. And so, yeah, this one actually works really good. So good idea there. Here again, the trick is you just got to find a tree climber. By the way, if you're looking closely where my hand is right here on the tree, that's where the feed line runs right up the tree. And there's the ballon right there. There. And then if you follow off really closely, there's the wire right there.
Yeah, I can't.
And right there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just barely see a little of a line.
Yep. And then right off my hand right here, here's the wire coming down on this side. It crosses the tree right there.
Yeah. You'll be able to see that guy.
Yeah. How about that? Yeah. That one's awesome. Like I said, that's my best performing antenna here. Okay. And then again, backyard antennas. Here's I think I've already showed you these. These were buddy poles that this guy set up here, built up. This is my multi-band R8. So that's my backyard right there. And most likely, if you're in Georgia and you hear me on 40 meters, this is the antenna that I'm talking on right there. And And if I'm talking to you in Georgia on 40 meters, I've most likely got this on. So for those of you that can't tell, that's a Yaesu Quattro VP 1000 or VL 1000 linear. So I could do legal limit with that on that vertical right there. And so far haven't had any problems getting into any of the neighbors. The auto tuner in my VL 1000 does a pretty good job of tuning that that thing on 20 and 40. So this other antenna here, this is a I forget which model vertical this one is, but one of the hams in the Superstition Club again lives up in that rather affluent community of Fountain Hills, and he got permission from his HOA to put this antenna up in the in his side lot. And so he took a bunch of pictures of it. And interestingly enough, when he put this thing out, he actually raked up all the dirt and rock out there and put expanded steel down on the ground, welded it together to create a pretty good sized ground mat that goes out about 20 feet. And then when he got done with all of that, he, I think he, if I remember right, I think he painted this thing sort of desert tan part way up and gray at the top. And it's got a pivot or a hinge on there. So when he's not using it, it lays down. And the homeowners association came out and looked at it, and they're like, well, we got to hand it to you. You've done everything you could possibly do to make that thing look stealthy and not be a nuisance. So they actually, even though they said they could still see it, they gave him a waiver to use that antenna because they could they were able to tell that he went the extra mile to try to not be offensive to the views of the neighbor. So I thought that was pretty good. Okay, let's see. We got a couple more slides here to go through before we get done. The magnetic loop. I've never used a magnetic loop. I know lots of other folks out here have. I believe the key there is to making sure that you've got a magnetic loop that's got a really good vacuum capacitor for tuning it locally. So you've got to have this vacuum capacitor. MFJ makes one. I've heard really good results from that. I believe EHAM has got some pretty good reviews on the MFJ mag loop. I'm trying to remember, there's a couple other companies out there that make them. There's even a really good book on magnetic loop antennas that you can get at HRO. There, as I recall, this the loop on the MFJ is about the size of your average hula hoop. So for those of you that are old enough to have actually had a hula hoop as a kid, you remember that they're probably somewhere between 36 and 40 inches in diameter. Yeah, thereabouts. So that's about how big they are, to sort of put this in perspective. But I've heard really good success. Heard folks have had really good success with those. This was one of our club members, George, KD4ABB, actually built his own magnetic loop antenna, and he went the extra mile and got installed a stepper motor on his switchable vacuum capacitor. And George is a pretty bright guy. I think he used to work with one of the Motorola labs or facilities out here. And so he brought this to the club meeting one night, I believe right after we had our presentation on stealth antennas, and showed everybody. Very stealthy. He gets stellar reviews or signal reports off of this thing. Not a very cheap antenna though. I believe he was talking about some of these parts right here cost him a couple $100 each. For that vacuum capacitor and stepper motor with the right steps on it. So, but that's what he uses. He's got it set up in his backyard. And here again, you can see his orange tree behind it back there, shields it. So Okay, here we go. Now we're closing up. So reference material. Again, I'm not the antenna expert. I'm just here to deliver some information, but man, there's a lot of really cool reference material out there on stealth antennas. All of these books, you can get them at over at HRO. By the way, is HRO still in Doraville in the same building? They're off of Buford Highway?
Still there.
Mm.
We've got an HRO in Florida now too.
Mm. Mm. I
It's
guess
up
they
north.
decided to move in when AEA closed down.
AEA closed down, so they've opened a store up in just north of Orlando. I
Mm.
ordered a radio from them here recently, and it was here in a day. So that's nice.
Nice, 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 nice. Well, we've got a ham radio outlet here in Phoenix, but it's on the west side of town, and I'm on the east side of town. So that's kind of like driving from Douglasville to Stone Mountain.
Yeah.
For me, if I put that in perspective for you guys. Anyway, so here's some really good reading material. There's some more information. Here we go. More on magnetic loop antennas, backyard antennas, HF antennas for all kinds of various locations. Let's see here. What do we got? More reference material. Oh, last but not least. So I put this presentation together originally in 2016, and the Amateur Radio Parity Act of 2015 was still alive and kicking at that time. It's now deceased, dead, and gone, but wanted to draw everybody's attention to it. More important than that, though, is the ARRL Spectrum Defense Fund. So even if you're not an ARRL member, I wasn't for quite many years, especially when I was traveling, because, well, the QSTs just kept piling up by the front door, never read them. I'm like, I don't want to pay for this thing, so I dropped my membership. But I did keep up my membership with the Spectrum Defense Fund. So, and I forget what it is now. If it's $30 to join the ARRL every year, out of that $30, I think like $2.50 or $3 of that goes to the Spectrum Defense Fund. I chose to just keep sending the Spectrum Defense Fund $30 every year, even when I wasn't a member. And they sent me a really cool coffee mug every year. I think I still got one up here. I got, yeah, they send me a really cool coffee mug from the ARRL Spectrum. Well, you can't see that anyway, but yeah, we got league stuff on there. And I've got one that's a different color for every year downstairs in my kitchen, sitting next to Mr. Coffee. But what do you call? Oh, here again, I gave this thing back in 2016 originally, so I put that tagline down at the bottom. Just because you like your amateur frequencies doesn't mean you can keep your amateur frequencies.
Yeah.
So join the Spectrum Defense Fund and help them out. And with that, that is my presentation, and gets me in at a little over an hour, which is about right for my speaking. Any questions from anybody? I hear crickets.
Yeah, Bob NZ Chuzi here. In one of the slides that showed the roof, I had a problem of some really irascible neighbors. One was a judge, the other a lawyer. So putting antennas up was a real hassle. But what I was able to come across at a Hamfest was a roll of ribbon wire. I think I got like 100-foot roll of ribbon wire. So I took the ribbon wire and I made a multi-band dipole out of it. And I cut it for I cut it for 10 to 80 meters, and I attached it onto the slope of the rafters on the slope.
Oh,
and
inside the attic.
I had to fold the 80-meter portion. I had to fold back in almost a triangular configuration, but the attic was high enough that I was able to get a pretty good signal out at low power levels. And it received very, very well. And I've been looking for some of that ribbon wire ever since, so I can make another one of those.
Gotcha. I'm trying to think where else I've seen that. stuff before.
This is Danny. Do they call that horse wire? It's like a cloth with braided copper embedded in it that's about 2 inches tall. Is that what you're describing?
No, it's the kind of ribbon wire that they use for computer connections, interconnect between computer boards. And it's a fairly thin wire. It's about, I don't know, four strands of 28 gauge. So it's pretty thin. But if you're operating, at low power levels, it's adequate to use.
They're using trailer hitch wire.
Now, thinner than that. But that's the same principle.
The old flat lead rotor wire, which is hard to get these days too, is another suitable thing. And you can make a multi band antenna out of that.
Yeah. But any kind of that flat ribbon type, flat ribbon wire, multi-band, what do you call it? Not multi-stranded, whatever, multi-wire, flat, huh?
Multi-conductor.
Yes, multi-conductor wire.
So
will work reasonably well.
Yeah. So the main reason you want to try to use anytime you find yourself in a need to use a flat conductor over a round conductor, it's typically to reduce inductive reactance and increase capacitive reactance on the wire. And so round wires typically have more inductance and less capacitance to them. And so that's one of the reasons you might want to do that. But an additional way of adding capacitance to an antenna is to have multiple runs in parallel in very close proximity to each other. So you could use the conductor itself doesn't necessarily have to be flat. If you've got, like a ribbon wire, like you would use for making computer connections, and you can solder them all together at one end and effectively get the same thing. There was a question in the chat room about the angle. There are varying opinions on angles. When I put mine up, I was trying to achieve a 90-degree angle between the two wires. So essentially a 45-degree angle from the tree to the wire was what I was shooting for. There are dipole and inverted V calculators out there. I just pulled up one right here that you can put in the various lengths and adjust the angles and play around with them, which is what I did when I was building mine. Stop the share here. I've heard folks talk about if you get, I believe that if that angle gets above, and I'm trying to remember what it is, from the tree to the wire, if that angle from the tree to the wire gets beyond, I think it's 60 degrees, it's going to start performing more like a flat dipole. And if you get down too close, I think it's less than 30 degrees, you end up it's not a vertical, it ends up being less effective. So here again, I was trying to hit mine right at 45, and so far it seems to be working now.
You want to talk about stealthy antenna? I've got two end-fed half waves here. And the nice thing about those things is it's like the one I got up front is a commercial model for 80 meters and up. And you cannot see that thing from the street. It's amazing.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, I've got it up higher than I used to, but when I had it hanging out of the trees, you couldn't even see the wire at all. And that's like number 16 or number 14 wire. It's brown wire, and it's you once you get a good distance from that thing, like 20 feet, you cannot see it. So
Oh,
that's
cool.
that's one of the stealthiest antennas I've ever seen for because you don't have your feed line in the middle; it's at the end, so that's easier to hide.
Right. Yep.
So they work real well for that. So just wanted to
There is,
go ahead.
I've been working on a couple of little things. One of them is the fact that you can put up a TV antenna in any place that you actually own a home. If you own that, you can put a TV antenna up. That's according to the FCC regulations. They can't prohibit you. None of the HOA rules or any of that kind of thing is supposed to be able to prohibit you as long as you own the property and you don't have like a shared roof with a neighbor and that kind of thing. If you're responsible for the roof, you can put an antenna up. So I thought if you can have an antenna up 5-10 feet off the roof, the doggone thing needs some guy wires. And you could run two different ways in that. You can either do an end fed that goes to in an inverted V situation. End fed goes up to the center of that TV mast and comes down at the other peak of the roof. And no one says it has to be a perfect guy wire setup. So you could very easily have yourself an inverted V end fed, or you can run your antenna coax feed right up the center of that, or the outside of the mast for the TV antenna, and run your guy wire antenna, ham antenna off of that, so it looks like a guy wire, and it's a black cable going up to the side of that TV antenna mast, and you have cable. You don't need that antenna for anything else. So that is a way to get around some of that, and everybody will think that's a TV antenna.
That's a great idea. You see anything else in chat, Andy? There, it's a.
Let's see. So some of the antennas that some of the verticals that I've worked with are the Hustler BT4, BT5, or BTV4, BTV5 and 6. Excellent. And the Cushcraft R7, R8, and R9. The R9's kind of difficult to work with because it's got a capacitance hat at the very top to get the extra height for 80 meters. And they've got the Cushcraft antennas also have decoupling radials at the bottom that can make them a little bit harder to hide. The Hustler BTV series actually works really well. There's trying to remember what some of the DX Engineering actually has probably the best selection of HF verticals of any of the retailers out there that I've seen. So that's would be a good place to look if you're looking for an HF vertical. Would be to go look at DX Engineering, and then you can go over to HRO and talk to them and see if they'll work with you on the price there. Let me see what else was I trying to think for. Honestly, AMSAT has gotten so easy now to work with handheld antennas that most of the folks out here in the Phoenix Valley area that do AMSAT stuff all do it now handheld antennas. Get the Arrow antenna, 4-element beam, and use a dual band handy talkie or 2 monoband handy talkies to do AMSAT. And that's using you can use a technician license and talk around the world via AMSAT on VHF frequencies. So it's a good opportunity there.
I've got a question about attic antennas.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any loss, and if so, how much?
I was pulling up my attic antenna. Yes, you were talking about loss. There we go. Yep, attic antennas. There we go. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're talking about losses in going through the roof? From the best of my knowledge, from what I've discovered, is there is zero loss in going through the roof. The disadvantage, or the problem that you have with the attic antenna has to do with your height off the ground. And so typically you're going to be dealing with ground, particularly at HF frequencies. You're going to be dealing with the capacitance issues because of your closer proximity to the ground for an HF antenna there. You could also, here again, depending on how your lengths are, you may very likely end up having to use a shortened antenna in order to make it fit in the attic. And that's what the problems that you have with the slinky antennas, that the slinky tries to overcome that by having the conductor spiral around to give you some additional inductance, to make the antenna think it's longer than it is. You can get a little bit more that way. You typically have to have a really large ranch style house to get away with an attic antenna, to be able to get the length out of an attic antenna. So you may find, if you're using attic antennas on HF, that you end up doing much better on 10, 12, and 15 than you do on 20 and 40, just depending on how long it is.
And as a follow-up, if you get the capacitance, if you are seeing, well, you wouldn't see it, but how does it manifest itself if you are having capacitance issues between the antenna and the ground?
Oh gosh, here we go. Now we're talking. Well, the biggest problem you're going to have has to do with takeoff angle. So you're the closer your antenna is to the ground, the shorter your, what do you call it, ground wave will be. And what's going to end up happening is that most of your signal, instead of transmitting out to the side, is going to be bouncing off and taking off. So you're going to have a really high radiation angle. So you'll be having to, you pretty much have to work skip in that situation. In order to be able to work ground wave on HF, your antenna has to be physically higher up in the air to be able to get the ground wave to work up. And I'm trying to forget what the exact distance is that you have to be minimum height above ground. Maybe it's, I don't forget whether it's quarter wave or half wave in order to be able to work ground wave really well off the ground, that you have to be above the ground. Here again, like I said, I'm not the theory expert on that. And it may affect your SWR a little bit if you're having parasitic effects with stuff around you like the ground. It may require you to make the antenna a little longer or a little shorter to counter that.
Oh, thanks. Anyone else? Got to be lots of questions out there. Don't be shy. Anybody have that? The Bob, KC4 CQO, are you out there, and did you want to show an antenna to show us?
Yeah, I'm here. I could, but what I did is I have a gazebo in my backyard. And what I did is I wrapped the antenna around the gazebo.
Ah, mm-hmm.
And I can actually show pictures of it if I can figure out how to do that. Do I have access to screen share?
Yeah, I stopped sharing, so it should be available.
Okay, let me try. All right. I do, but okay, let me. Like, that's not exactly the right one. Like, that's the gazebo, and it's fairly good sized. It's each one of these sides are about 7 foot. If you can see my mouse, this there's the antenna that runs up to my second floor bedroom. Over here is where the end-fed antenna comes out. The feed line runs along the top on the inside of the gazebo. And then this is the where it comes up to the the end-fed balun.
What do you figure your circumference is?
Well, each one of the the sides are about 7 foot. So the circumference is probably what, 50, 60 feet. So it's a pretty good sized gazebo. And there's the end-fed wire that runs through. The first time I did this, I just drilled holes and ran the bare wire through the rafter. That worked until it rained. And then the SWR went to hell. So I bought these little plastic, these white tubes, plastic tubes, and stuck them in the hole. And that seems to have solved the SWR issue.
Yeah, the polyethylene ice maker, line.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yep.
fine.
And then this is my 2 meter antenna that I have sticking off the side of it. That's
That'll
not,
work.
it's not scalp at all, but there's stealth at all. But that works. I have no HOA, but it was an issue of a honeydew restrictions. So
there you go.
Yeah, that's what I put in the invitation, where all the notices. Yeah, if you have an HOA or a spouse who can make you do certain things, you may need to go stealth.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, you're welcome. And actually, it appears to work fairly well. It seems because it's a semicircle, it seems to have better propagation out to the northeast, and also out towards Mexico. There doesn't seem to be too much west, straight west. So that may be just the way it's oriented, or for some other propagation.
Is it going out the open side? Is that where you think most of the signal is, from the, where it's a semicircle, right? So is it going out the side where the wire is, or from the other side?
It seems to be going, if you think of it as a C, it seems to be, well, the northeast is more in the sea direction, open sea direction, and Mexico is out on the other direction.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answers your question or
Well,
not.
it is, but you said it's not going northwest, right?
Well, it is. In other words, I can normally talk to Massachusetts, New York. This weekend, I talked to the Canadian when they were doing this bomber thing that they had.
So you are getting, okay. So okay. So the gap side, you are getting out on the gap side. Okay, that's where.
Yeah, I'm getting out. It seems to be the gap side and the opposite of the gap, but if you go the other directions, it doesn't seem to work. In other words, the gap or the back of the gap seems to work. If you're going out the sides that are not the gap or the back of the gap, then it doesn't seem to have as good of radiation.
We'll just look that up sometime in EasyNet, see what it says.
Yeah.
See what it thinks about it.
But it's hidden, so and the wife is happy.
There you go.
Nice gazebo too.
Yeah,
Anyone
thanks.
else? Does everybody understand everything, or nobody's got any questions? It's good. Everybody's doing well.
Great presentation.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. So I look forward to coming back again. Was going to let me see if I can give you a quick preview of another presentation. I'm not going to give the presentation, just to give you an idea of what else is available here. Is the let me see, where's my virtual tour here? Do I have my oh, I
You
thought
turn screen sharing back on.
I shouldn't be sharing screen right now.
You're not. You're not.
Oh, okay. All right. No, I'm trying to find it here real quick so I can let's see here. Yeah, I'm trying to find the presentation here real quick so I can show you let's see. Okay, here it is. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay, all right. Now I can. Now let me turn my screen share on here to grab the Zoom call there and share screen, which is there. Okay, got it. Ta-da! So, so that's another presentation that I have that I can certainly give. It goes about an hour, where I visited the ARRA headquarters on a Friday before a holiday weekend, and there wasn't a lot going on. So I got to spend about 2 hours with my camera going through the whole through the ARRA headquarters and the W1AW radio station, and so I assembled a PowerPoint presentation, and so it's now a virtual tour. If you've never been to Newington, Connecticut, and don't have any opportunities to go, well, this is the next best thing.
No, that'd be great. Yeah, because I've always been curious about the layout of WNAW.
So yeah, that's kind of a neat place. It's kind of a neat place here. It's a Connecticut destination, I guess, for hams. Mm-hmm.
One of the sacred grounds.
Right, there you go. All right, very good. Well, let's see. At this point, I'll relinquish the mic back to you, Rob, and John, to carry out the rest of your meeting.
I appreciate that. Well, wonderful presentation. Thanks, Andy. And I like you got buzzing back at you, so that's always a good sign. Right. Muted. There we go. See, that's how I know you know what you're talking about. That's the best endorsement. Thanks.
All right. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. Like I said, remember, if you're a member of the Atlanta Radio Club, we thank you for your financial support. If you're not and would like to, please do join us at www.atlantaradioclub.org, where you can join. And these finances go to help support the repeaters and other club activities here in town. Plus, we participate in the scholarship program with the ARRL. So your money is put to good use. So thank you, Rob. Once again, another great presentation. Thanks, Andy, for being with us tonight. We would just like to remind everybody the QSO party this weekend. Do join us at Victoria Bryant or on Saturday, or Brook Run and Dunwoody. Directions and maps can be found on our webpage, front page there. And please do join us for that. And of course, we're hoping to see everybody in person in May at the American Red Cross building down on Monroe Drive, which is where we've been meeting for the last several years. We're not going to be meeting in the boardroom, which is where everybody's accustomed to meeting. That's that big room with the big U-shaped table arrangement. We're going to be back in one of the smaller rooms, which will probably be a little better for us to conduct meetings along with the Zoom feature. So That way everybody can see the screen and the presenters can see us. So please do join us for that. And of course, do seriously consider joining us for the Strange Antenna Challenge at the end of May. That information will be available on the website soon. And of course, the Hamfest, the first Saturday in June out at Jim Miller Park.
Lunch tomorrow.
Oh yeah, and of course our lunches have been really going pretty well here. We've been having about a dozen people show up, so please do join us at Mellow Mushroom in Brookhaven, which is right across the intersection from I think it's the Brookhaven MARTA station. I think that's what it's called. Right there on Peachtree and what's the name of the side street? But kind of behind I think there's a what's right there.
And is that Druid Hills?
Yeah, somewhere close.
I think Druid Hills comes in up an intersection up, but yeah, in that general area right there at Peachtree and
Dresden.
and Dresden.
There we go, Dresden.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we've been having quite a bit of turnout, new hams, old hams, and we've been exchanging ideas and just having a great time. So please do join us for that too. And we're looking at possibly doing either a breakfast or some other evening time event where we can get together. If you're not able to join us for lunch, maybe you can join us on one of these others coming up. So just keep your eyes on the website and Facebook. That's some of the best ways to get up-to-date information. And of course, we have the ARC at groups.io for if you subscribe to that, then you'll get all the emails in a format that you desire, whether it's individually or in a digest once a day or once a week or whatever. I forget what all the options are. So
y'all still do a Christmas party at the barbecue restaurant?
No, this past year we did it at the Mad Italian, which is right there on 285 near North Peachtree. That was where we were this year, and we presented our Ham of the Year to Jeff Hotchburn, J4JEW, and he somehow also ended up walking away with the Nano VNA that we gave away for the night. It was quite a haul for him that night. So it wasn't planned. It's just the luck of the draw. So he did quite well that night. So walked away with the trophy and the prize. So
one quick thing to add on Saturday, at Victoria Bryant Park, where the Saturday event is, that's going to be led by Bill Perkins, KB4KFT, and Jeff, W4JEW. So it's going to be people who know what they're doing up there. You're going to see some antennas. You can get help with antennas or whatever. And of course, Sunday, same thing in the park that we're in. Come on by and we'll get you on the air.
And one other thing, we are trying to become more involved with and supporting of Red Cross. So there'll be opportunities going forward to be more involved with that. We are looking, if you're interested in becoming an official volunteer, we're going to be working on some protocols for doing that, which will allow you to, first of all, assist us getting in and out of the building for meetings. But it will also, if I understand it correctly, will give you access to KD4ABB, which is the station in the basement there. So that's kind of I think that's a perk that you have access to if you're an official Red Cross volunteer. And we've also talked about possibly looking into having members offer their services to the local hospitals, each of which have their own ham stations. Some care not to have them, and others do. And but it's obviously, like with Katrina, it was a great opportunity to provide communications, and that might be another way for a ham who doesn't have his own station to have a station on the side that he or she can kind of go and operate and keep it up to date and maintain. So we're possibly going to look at doing some of that kind of stuff too with the hospitals locally. So there's plenty of opportunities there also. So if you have an interest in being a Red Cross volunteer, keep an eye on the website and we'll give you the protocols on doing that. And anybody have any questions about anything club-wise, or any other questions they've thought about, any other questions about life? Or I'm sure somebody here could probably answer it, but
just
hey, John, go ahead.
I was going to say, I noticed Dick K2UFT showed up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Dick.
And if any of you have any other questions, I'm good on QRZ.
Hey, and Andy, W0MHS
There he
is
is.
now W7FB. Fine business.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Still in Missouri, last time I talked with him.
Hmm.
Andy, do you think we'll be able to get the, are the slides available? Are you giving those, do you give those out?
Sure, I can email that. I've got a PDF I can email over to you and be happy.
Thanks. I'll post it on the website. so
Awesome.
People can, if they can go and look at them if they have any questions.
Sure.
And if you're a tech right now, I believe the Kentucky Club's got a tech to general class coming up in the next week or two. So they've got a brand new website out. Their address is w4bti.club. Their web address was hacked and they lost it, so they had to change that. So go check out their new website as they're starting to add content to it. But they have an upcoming tech to general class if you're interested. So,
Is it 1 day or 2 days?
I think it's 3 weekends.
Okay.
So you have to double check it, but and of course the ARC is we've also kind of thrown that around too about possibly doing a tech to general class for our members, and if we need to, we may pull another club in to help make that a possibility. Something like Alfred Memorial or North Fulton or GARS. So you can never have too many opportunities to upgrade from tech we've got a lot of new techs coming in, so. It'd be a good upgrade, a good chance for them to push them to upgrade and understand what they're missing out on. So, any other questions, comments, suggestions?
Hey, John, this is Bill, WB2RIS.
Hey, Bill.
I perhaps you talked about this earlier in the meeting, but I joined late. But I just wanted to thank everybody in the Atlanta Radio Club for making the Whiskey 5 Bravo special event a great success. Since I put out the question about, is any club thinking of doing a special event for the centennial of WSB radio? You especially, John, and the club came together and we planned it in less than a month, and I saw we made a little over 2,000 contacts. So I had a great time, especially being at the transmitter site and at the offices and being with you. So I just wanted to thank everyone that in the club that helped make this a great success.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. We didn't mention it, but I hope everybody had a chance to work that station. This was the 100th anniversary for WSB, so we did our week-long special event station with some in-person operating on March the 15th, which was their official anniversary date. So we worked the WSB offices that morning for a little bit, and then got out of their hair and all went to the transmitter and worked from the transmitter, which we were able to once we figured out how to negate the effects of that big tower that we were trying to work under. We got it working, and we made quite a few contacts overall for the week. I think we're around 26 or 2,700 contacts now. So, wow. And that
We're sending out cards, nice QSL cards.
Oh yeah, we got a nice QSL card, and they're due in here soon, and we'll be sending those out. We've already received like 500 requests for QSL cards. So, but well, thanks for everybody that made that happen in the few short weeks we were able to put that together, and it worked out really good, and everybody had a great time. WSB was happy and we made some new friends over there too that we might be able to work with in the future on things. So,
did y'all go out to? Was that when you went to the transmitter site? Were you out there? Was that North Lake Festival?
Yeah, right there in the shopping. It's a shopping center now. So
yeah,
North Lake Festival. So it used to be a field back in the 80s, I believe. I think when I was growing up. But it took us a little while, and we grabbed a few of the wrong wires along the way and learned not to do that too while we were there. So it was a learning experience, and we were able to get. Once we got, I think Bill had his screwdriver outside the wall, I think, and that was vertical. And once we got that hooked up, we were able to get past all the RF burns and everything like that. So it was fun.
Maybe someday we'll take up Charlie's offer about loading up the antenna for maybe if some of the people do that those really low bands, we might be able to get those if someone like the 2200 meter, those two really low bands, we might be able to load up that antenna
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
try it someday.
Their chief engineer that was out there was talking about us loading up the tower. So he said one night he could shut it down, and let us load it up. So. But they're a good group of people, and like I said, we made some good contacts and some new friends that we'll be able to do some stuff with in the future. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
That's the AM antenna, right, for WSB?
Yeah, that's the AM antenna.
That's the
Yeah,
one.
and if you'll notice, just out of a note, you'll notice that they're kind of they're getting away from their AM branding. They're going, everything's FM now. So like the QSL, the logo for this event didn't have anything about AM, and it just said 95.5 on. A lot of people were asking why it didn't have AM. It's really because the engineer said nobody has an interest in AM radio anymore. So these radio stations are all going to FM, and plus they get to play with all these new phone apps and all this other stuff that the new generation gets to do. So that's why you'll see a lot of it that just says 95.5 on it FM, but it's simulcast on the 95. So, but yep.
I read that, or I saw something about history of radio. And so WSB started in 1922.
Yeah.
And the first commercial stations were on in 1920, not too far.
Yeah.
Before that. And then the ARC was on, where are we, 1911?
Club was founded in 1911. So yeah,
we're older than
that's what I told the program director there. I said, well, our club's a little older than the radio station, so we got you by a couple of years.
Yeah, and the radio stations, I just saw WLS. I think that's another Clear Channel station, and that stands for. That actually stands for. I didn't know it stood for anything, but it was put in by Sears, and WLS is world's largest store.
Yeah.
And then WGN in Chicago was put in by the Tribune, so that's world's greatest newspaper.
Yeah, that tower out there is, I don't know, what, 80 years old. It's quite a trophy, monument to engineering for towers. So
it's a landmark.
Yeah. Just don't touch those in it, and when you got wires laying on the ground across those radios.
I imagine that gets right.
So, all right. Well, anything else, guys? If not, we'll wrap it up for the night, and invite y'all to, like I said, to join us next month. Hopefully you can join us in person. We'll have a before meeting dinner, and if not, join us on Zoom. And I don't think you ever mentioned what the program is next month, Rob.
Okay. That's right. I totally missed that. The speaker next month is Fred Lloyd, and I don't have his call handy, but he founded and runs QRZ.com. The website where you look up calls. That's mainly what I use it for. It's got some forums on there, but it's got a lot of other things on there apparently that Hams might be interested in, we might be interested, I might be interested in. So what he's going to speak to us, and he's going to give us a tour of the QRZ.com is a website, and we're going to learn all kinds of things about it and features that we could use on it that we didn't know in the past.
And by the way, if you don't like the presentation, blame me. Don't blame Rob. Fred Lloyd actually lives just up the road from me here in Scottsdale, and he's a member of our club out here. And I actually turned Rob on to contacting Fred Lloyd. He's a much better presenter than I am. I think you're going to like it.
You'll have to join it next month just to check it out.
And what do we have on the books for June?
June, we've got a fellow Dr. Ed Fong, and his company, I guess he has a small company where they sell a unique type of antenna. And so he's going to tell us about his antenna, and I think just some, general information. I don't like to get speakers in who are just pushing their wares. But as I've heard, Ed's very popular and has a lot of good things to say. He was, the Fayette County Club had him last year and they really liked him.
That was another one of my ideas, folks. I've met Ed Fong out here at the Superstition Hamfest a couple of times, and he spoke out here, and absolutely genius. So make sure you take your Ritalin before you listen to his presentation, so you can stay tuned to every word, because he doesn't spend time with idle chat. Everything he says has got some significant technical detail to it.
Okay, well, that's another one then to blame Andy on if you don't like it. Yeah. I like it. I'm covered.
All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, we'll call it a night. I thank y'all for being with us. And like I said, continue to keep subscribe to the .io group for information, and pay attention. Keep your eyes on Facebook and our webpage for upcoming events and how to get there and when the times are and so on and so forth. But do plan on joining us the next month for the QRZ presentation. And any other questions, just feel free to email us. You can type in the board position at atlantaradioclub.org, and we'll answer whatever questions, or find somebody who can answer it for you. So
And there's a contact form on the website.
yeah, there's a contact form. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or suggestions for the club too. So if no other questions, we'll sign off, and everybody have a good evening, and we'll see you hopefully see you this weekend for the QSO party, and if not, we'll see you next month or June at the Hamfest.
All righty.
All right, y'all have a good evening.
Good night, everybody. 73, everybody.
73.